Many years ago, I was taking a drive with my brother. Now, he's not my biological brother, but I mean, we're so close now that I consider him to be my brother, which is very close. But anyway, so we're taking a drive, and it was late in the evening, and I was talking to him about like um, the effects of training on the body and the mind and stuff like that. But the conversation just came up because we train together and stuff like that, like working out and stuff. So I was talking to him about like how it affects your mind and how it makes you feel better about yourself. Like, I at the time I was at university, if I remember correctly, and I had my own things that I was facing for myself and things I was figuring out for myself. That was around the time I was still trying to figure out who I am and stuff like that. So I would tell him that one of the most amazing things about training is that sometimes when you're facing all these different problems, and sometimes you got to solve all these different problems, you got to find solutions, you got to find the best way forward. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, and sometimes you try to do so much in a situation, but when you take a segment out of your day to go and work out and then come back and look at the situation again, you see it from a clearer perspective, you see it from a better perspective, and your ability to face the situation, the exact same situation that you were facing a few hours before, has changed. Now you're much more capable of facing it, and you can find better solutions to the problem. Sometimes the solutions find you as soon as you come back, So I would tell him about this, and I would tell him that I love the way this feels, and that's one of the benefits of training, because it helps you put your thoughts together. It helps you escape reality, or temporarily escape reality before you have to come back and face it. It helps you detach from the anxiety in some way, which is a good thing, because if you're always attached to anxiety, you're not going to be capable of facing things well, right? You're going to be exhausted much more sooner than you, I guess, expect to be, and stuff like that. So I would tell him, and we were talking about that, and I told him once that in my everyday life, of course, I was still young and also trying to figure out things for myself. In my everyday life, I would like to be able to try and harness this power that you get after training, this feeling that you get, and try to be able to add it to my life in those moments where I'm facing things, and be able to solve these situations without needing to like leave and go work out and then come back to it, because it didn't make sense to me to be able to only face situations properly after I worked out. I like that feeling, and I wanted to be able to apply it to my life regardless of whether or not I was working out. That was a long shot, of course. This by no means that I'm going to say that there's a way forward that you can feel amazing about yourself without training. Training has its own benefits for the mind, the body, and the soul, and stuff like that. Of course, I only say that because I'm sharing from my own personal experiences. So yeah, but something, well, along the years when I was trying to figure out things for myself, when I would go for walks and stuff like that, where I would put my thoughts together, where you sort of detach from the anxiety, I would I would try something where if I was in a certain situation and I found myself being subjectively caught up into it, with your own thoughts, your own worries, your own fears, maybe your own even insecurities and weaknesses coming up against you, right? Sometimes when you face something that you've never faced before, suddenly you have the imposter syndrome about whether you're good enough to actually face it, and that is kind of you stopping yourself from actually facing the situation, right? Or sometimes you may see someone that you've never really spoken to for a long time, and that may make you feel awkward about facing them and stuff like that, or a relationship with someone that you're close to, someone that you're not talking to, stuff like that. So all the different situations that may come up, those are just examples, but there's so many more situations out there in the world. So one of the things that I would do is I would tell myself, instead of being subjectively caught up in the situation, take a moment to be objective. So instead of being caught up in this bubble, take a moment to step out of it and see what's really going on, see what's happening between you and the other people, see what's being said, what's the actual goal, is there a point to this conversation, are people going to improve because of it, and what you can do to lead this conversation down a better path, right? What can you say and what can you do to lead it down a better path, instead of being emotionally reactive to everything someone is saying. Sorry, what can you say and do right now that's going to help this conversation go down in that better path? So when you take a moment to look at it objectively, you'll be able to see the end goal, the better end goal from any conversation, and then from there you can lead the conversation down that path. The things that you say and do then will help lead the problem to a better solution. So I would tell myself those sorts of things, take a step back, look at it from outsider's perspective. And then over the years, as I was practicing it for myself, I started to learn that it's sort of called detaching, detaching from reality for a moment, stepping outside your bubble. Because sometimes when you're facing the situations that you're facing for yourself, you get so attached to it, It could be your emotions that's trapping you there, your own thoughts that's trapping you there, your own fears, your own insecurities, your own weaknesses, all these different things that are trapping you in a certain situation, and it's keeping you attached there. There could be so many other things that you're trying to achieve for yourself. Oh, this person's stopping me from trying to do this for myself. This person's being an inconvenience to me. Or this person's saying this. Oh, I don't like the way the person is treating me. Or I don't. I wish this didn't happen. Those sorts of things. You get caught up in your head. It happens to us more than we care to admit. Where you get so caught up in your head, things don't always go away, right? You have to admit it. We may show people that our lives are perfect, but it's far from that. It's not always perfect all the time. It's not always good all the time, right? There's times where it's actually quite terrible, and that's okay. It happens to all of us. And sometimes we all get caught up in our head, and we all succumb to life a little at times. It may happen to all of us, and we may not like it, but it happens to all of us. But one of the most useful things that I'm of course sharing today that helps is being able to detach when we find ourselves in a certain situation, to detach from the anxiety, to step outside the bubble that we find ourselves in those moments. Because when we find ourselves in those moments, we become caught up in this sort of bubble, right? So when we step outside the bubble and see what's really going on and what's the best way forward, we can lead ourselves down a better path. If we detach from our emotions, our fears, all these different things influencing the thoughts that are actually not leading us down a better path, we can take a moment to detach and then face whatever we need to face for ourselves in the best way forward, and lead whatever problems we're facing down a better path towards a better solution. So taking a moment to detach whenever we find ourselves going down the wrong path is always helpful, because it'll help us see the best way forward for us. Now, it's a difficult thing to actually just do. It's randomly, but it's something that you build over time if you practice it in yourself, if you learn to gain a sort of awareness over yourself when you notice yourself going down the wrong path. If you see in yourself that you're going down the wrong path, and you tell yourself, hey, I'm going down the wrong path, let me take a moment to actually just step back and see what's really going on. It usually starts off like that. I think that's how I started off doing it. But when you start doing that for yourself and detaching from whatever's holding you down to a certain situation, when you detach and you start to see the best way forward reveals itself to you, and then you can walk down that path. It saves you a whole lot of time, it saves you a whole lot of energy. And what I notice is that it saves you from being manipulated by the outside world. I'm not saying that people directly try to manipulate you in the outside world, but there's so many influences that are going on the outside world, that sometimes we may be getting manipulated whether or not we're realizing it. Sometimes people do it subconsciously or consciously, right? But if you take a moment to take a step back and just see what's really going on, we can watch over ourselves and see whether we're being manipulated or not. And we can actually have a moment to actually see what's going on, see what it's trying to do to us, and talk to ourselves in a way that'll help us lead ourselves down a better path. So if someone comes along and suddenly insults you, instead of you just suddenly insulting them back, you take a step back and see, hey, what's really going on? Why is this person saying that? Is it true what they're saying? Okay, if it's not true, why are they saying this? Are they having a bad day? Are they having a series of bad days that they do not feel good about themselves? Did someone insult them? Okay, maybe it's that. So do I need to respond to them? No, because now I actually feel sorry for this person, because they're not in a good space right now, and if they were, they probably wouldn't be doing this. Those sorts of things. In a relationship, instead of you arguing with someone back and forth, similar example, but instead of you arguing with someone back and forth, taking a step back to actually control, I guess, your emotions, be patient with them, and see the best way forward for both of you towards a common understanding. That's the best way forward, right? Those are just two examples, but you can apply this to any aspect of your life, any problem that you face. Taking a moment to actually detach and see what's really going on, and lead yourself down a better path towards, or leading your problems toward a better solution. Detaching and seeing that better way forward is always helpful. So practice it in your everyday life. If you find yourself being so caught up in situations that sometimes it's exhausting and you don't like yourself afterwards, take a moment to practice detaching from the moment, looking at it objectively and not always subjectively, right? Take a moment to actually detach and see what's really going on, and then lead yourself down a better path. It'll happen. You'll notice it in your everyday life, but take a moment in your everyday life to actually try and see how it's affecting you, right? You can have retrospectives at the end of the day to actually check in with yourself, or at the end of the week to actually check in with yourself and see how well you're doing with this particular habit, because it's a habit, and once you start to do it, it becomes a part of your life, a valuable part of your life, and you'll only become much more productive and much more valuable with your relationships, with your work, with your personal health, with your wealth, with your finances, but all these different things. You become much more better with facing your life. You become, I guess, much wiser, I guess, much more mature. But yeah, so practice it. I hope in some way that helps you if you're finding yourself getting too caught up with life and you're not really liking yourself afterwards. So if it does, of course, and you have any questions about it, let me know. I'm always here and willing to help wherever I can. Yeah, I guess until the next time, take care of yourself, be safe, and peace.